The moment Meghan Markle vanished from Britain without a single photograph, the story didn't go quiet, it exploded, because what followed made even less sense than the silence itself.
Meghan Markle is becoming more like Michael Jackson by the day. And by the way, I'm not talking about talent. I'm talking about the odd way that she is choosing to raise her family. The wig, the hat, the glasses, she believes it's the only way she can move around unnoticed. According to sources, the undercover routine intensified after Meghan's recent trip to Britain, where she wasn't photographed once, and perhaps even more surprisingly, barely caused a ripple. After the UK, she's become obsessed with staying invisible.
Meghan Markle returned from Britain without being photographed once, and now, the moment she came back to Montecito, she became obsessed with leaving the house in wigs, giant sunglasses, baseball caps, and baggy clothes, so nobody could recognize her.
At this point, the disguise is probably attracting more attention than her face would.
Meghan Markle returned from Britain without being photographed once, and somehow that absence didn't calm the narrative, it detonated it, because the second Meghan Markle stepped back into Montecito. A new pattern allegedly began to unfold, one that felt less like privacy and more like performance wrapped in secrecy. Wigs, giant sunglasses, baseball caps pulled low, oversized sweatshirts swallowing her silhouette whole, baggy trousers hiding every recognizable detail. A woman who had just moved invisibly across an entire country suddenly acting like the world was closing in on her from every angle. Why? Why now? And more importantly, why does everyone suddenly know every single detail of the disguise?
And then we come to the most mad part. The paparazzi are tracking them down. They are on their tail. Oh yes, they were there. But there just happened to be no pictures whatsoever. So what happened instead? Meghan posted these.
Because here's where the contradiction hits hard. Just days earlier, Meghan Markle was being accused of something completely different, of allegedly staging visibility, of placing her own family in front of carefully managed lenses, of releasing images that looked private but felt curated, controlled, designed. So now the question isn't small, it's explosive. Which version is real? The woman trying to disappear, or the woman making sure she's seen exactly the way she wants?
First of all, why are we hearing about her disguises? If you're going out in disguises, then why is it being spoken about? Just go out in your disguises, shut your mouth. This is because she wants people to know about it. This is all a branding thing. I don't even know why we would even hear about her going out in disguises. She is not all that. It's ridiculous.
And that question doesn't fade, it multiplies. Because according to the report, these disguises aren't occasional. They're routine, a full system, a method, a strategy that transforms everyday movement into something covert, almost theatrical. But if it's truly covert, why is it public knowledge? If the goal is invisibility, why is the costume list circulating like a headline? That's where the story twists into something stranger. Someone close enough to see everything is also close enough to describe everything. The wig, the hat, the glasses, the sweatshirt, the trousers, every piece exposed, every detail leaked. And suddenly the disguise doesn't feel like protection, it feels like a script. Because a real disguise disappears. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't come with a checklist handed to the media. The second the world knows what to look for, it stops working. So what are we really looking at here? A genuine attempt to stay hidden, or a story designed to make invisibility look dramatic? And then comes the timing, the detail that turns suspicion into something heavier. This entire routine allegedly intensified after Meghan Markle's trip to Britain, a trip where something unprecedented happened. Nothing, no photos, no airport shots, no long lens captures, no accidental glimpses, silence, total, complete silence. Now pause there, because that silence is louder than any photograph. Meghan Markle and Prince Harry have spent years describing an intense battle with the media, chasing cameras, relentless attention, a constant fight for privacy. And yet, in Britain, the place where that pressure is supposed to be strongest, there was nothing. No frenzy, no chaos, no evidence of pursuit. So critics are asking the question no one can ignore. Did the lack of photographs prove Meghan Markle was being protected, or did it prove no one was chasing her in the first place? And that question cuts deeper than any disguise ever could. Because if the cameras didn't come, then what exactly is Meghan Markle hiding from now? The narrative shifts again. When cameras exist, they're a threat. When they don't, their absence becomes suspicious. And suddenly, a new explanation explanation appears disguises. Not relief, not freedom, but an even stronger need to stay hidden. Think about that pattern. When attention is present, it's dangerous. When attention disappears, it's alarming. When silence happens, it must be explained. And that's where this stops being about a wig. It becomes about control, about shaping perception down to the smallest detail. Because even in absence, Meghan Markle remains at the center of the story. And just when the story seems like it couldn't twist any further, it does. Because the silence from Britain doesn't stay silent for long. It mutates. It reshapes itself into something louder than any photograph ever could. Because after Meghan Markle returns, the images don't come from paparazzi, they come from Meghan Markle. Carefully selected, carefully timed, carefully framed. Moments that were invisible in real time suddenly appear later, almost like evidence released after the fact. Not raw, not accidental, controlled, and that's where the contradiction sharpens into something impossible to ignore. The cameras weren't there when Meghan Markle was in Britain, but the images still arrive, just not from the outside, from the inside. And that changes everything, because it flips the entire narrative on its head. This isn't about being chased. This is about deciding when the chase is allowed to exist. Meghan Markle doesn't disappear, Meghan Markle delays visibility. Meghan Markle chooses the angle, the timing, the platform. And suddenly, invisibility doesn't look like protection. It looks like strategy. Because if the press doesn't capture the moment can still be released later, under complete control. That's not absence, that's power. But then the backlash hits, and it hits hard. Because the same cycle keeps repeating and people are starting to notice the pattern. Complain about cameras, then release images, demand privacy, then narrate the private moment, and now add something new disguises. A whole new layer that doesn't replace the old story but stacks on top of it. Wigs, hats, glasses, and yet somehow the world is told exactly what those disguises look like before Meghan Markle even steps outside. That's not invisibility, that's anticipation. And then the comparison drops, and it doesn't land quietly, it detonates. Michael Jackson, a name that carries weight, chaos, history, obsession, a level of global attention that turned ordinary movement into spectacle. And now, suddenly, Meghan Markle is being placed in that same conversation. Not directly claimed, but suggested, whispered, framed, and the problem is immediate, because once that comparison exists, people start measuring it. They start asking whether the scale matches the reality, whether the disguise fits the level of attention being claimed. And for many, the answer doesn't align. But the story doesn't need alignment, it thrives on contradiction. Because at the same time that Meghan Markle is allegedly hiding behind disguises, Meghan Markle's name keeps moving across headlines, across platforms, across conversations. Visibility doesn't disappear, it multiplies. And that's where the deeper suspicion begins to form. Not about whether the disguises exist, but about what they represent. Are they protection or are they part of the performance? Because look at the sequence. A trip to Britain with no photographs. A sudden return filled with claims of needing to stay hidden. Then carefully released images that contradict the idea of total invisibility. Then accusations about staged paparazzi moments layered on top. And now a narrative that Meghan Markle cannot leave the house without going undercover. Each piece doesn't replace the last, it collides with it. Builds pressure, builds doubt, builds something that feels less like a single story and more like a cycle that feeds itself. And right in the middle of that cycle stands Prince Harry, pulled into every contradiction whether Prince Harry wants to be or not, because the issue of security has never been small. It has always been serious, rooted in history, shaped by experience, tied to something deeper than headlines. But when that seriousness gets surrounded by stories of wigs and oversized sunglasses, the message starts to blur. The line between genuine concern and public narrative becomes harder to see. And once that line blurs, everything becomes harder to believe. Because the question isn't just about Meghan Markle anymore, it's about consistency. It's about credibility. It's about whether the story being told today can survive the story that was told yesterday. And right now, those stories don't sit comfortably together. They clash, they overlap, they expose each other. And that's why this doesn't end cleanly. It can't, because every attempt to close the narrative opens another question. If Meghan Markle truly wants to disappear, why does every effort to disappear become a headline? If the world is supposedly watching every move, why did Britain produce nothing? And if privacy is the goal, why does it keep arriving packaged, timed, and released?